In the middle of the Indian Ocean lies the world's largest coral atoll, and a collection of 55 islands that together make up the British Indian Ocean Territory. Covering an area of 250,000 square miles. It is home to some species found nowhere else on the planet. It's a globally important site for migratory animals and has some of the most pristine coral reefs anywhere in the world. So precious are these islands that helping to protect the environment here is something we can all support. As a visitor, we invite you to help preserve these islands and unlock their natural secrets. The archipelago traces its origins back some 45 million years. Back then, the Indian Ocean was a very different place. A hotspot deep below the Earth's crust produced a chain of volcanoes that became new islands. Over time, these volcanoes fell dormant, and the islands began to sink back into the sea. But beneath the waves, coral reefs formed, eventually covering the sinking volcanoes. The islands today are made up of coral sand and rubble that washes up from the reefs below the water. Seashells are also scattered among the rocky debris. One creature likes to use these shells as their home. The hermit crab. Carrying their homes with them wherever they go, the shells provide protection from predators. As a crab grows, its shell becomes an even tighter fit. So eventually, it needs to move into a bigger one. But finding the right size is a tricky task. This crab is in need of an upgrade and is eyeing up a possible new house. He first checks to see if anyone is home and makes sure there are no holes or cracks. Once he's happy, he makes his move. It's a little large, but he'll soon grow into it. Shells are a valuable commodity to the island's wildlife and are best left on the beaches if found. Some hermits feed on fallen coconuts. But this meal has caught the attention of the hermit's bigger brother. Rare throughout the world, but abundant on these islands. It's the largest land crab in the world. The coconut crab. Found throughout the archipelago, these are the island's giants. Their claws have a pincer strength greater than the jaws of a lion. They're opportunistic hunters, and when coconuts run dry, they turn to a carnivorous diet. And unfortunately for the birds, they're expert tree climbers. This red-footed booby would make a hearty meal. But at 3 feet from claw to claw, the crab's great size eventually gives itself away. Seabirds are everywhere in the archipelago. Some of the outer islands are home to huge colonies during the breeding season. With few predators, some, like these brown boobies, nest on the ground. Frigates and redfoots tend to make their nests in the trees. As mating season approaches, the island's beaches become packed with terns. With competition high, finding a partner can sometimes be problematic. To attract a mate, sooty terns bow their heads. This pair seem to have matched and are edging closer to each other. But waiting in the wings is another male, a rival. In this game, you need to be quick. And as the male eventually makes his move, the rival jumps in. This male will have to find another mate. The island's birds rely on the seas for their food. Thankfully, the territory has some of the healthiest populations of reef fish anywhere in the world. Terns and noddies pick their food from shallow schools of fish just beneath the water's surface. Trapped between birds in the air and larger fish beneath the waves, this bait ball of silversides doesn't last long. In times of plenty, the catch is shared. Birds like these terns would struggle to survive if it wasn't for the bountiful reefs that fringe the islands. Life on land here is intrinsically linked to life in the oceans. No animal proves this connection more than the island's moray eels. As the tide drops, morays slither into exposed rock pools in search of a meal. Grapsus crabs know not to get too close to the water's edge. Leaping from rock to rock, the water is a dangerous place for a crab. Yet the island's morays have developed an ingenious trick. Climbing out of the water, they flush the crabs out of their hiding places. This crab has become marooned on a rock, and it's too far to jump to safety. One tiny creature is more important to the British Indian Ocean Territory than any other: the coral polyp. Capturing energy from the sun and driving the entire food chain, every species on the atoll, from the minute to the massive, owes their existence here to the reef. Coral polyps are the building blocks of the reef and grow alongside each other to form magnificent structures. Hard corals with limestone skeletons can grow in this manner for hundreds of years. They provide refuge for marine creatures and are a nursery for juvenile fish. A healthy reef supports large predators and endangered species like the green turtle. The best place to see green turtles is at Turtle Cove, at the southern tip of Diego Garcia. Here, juveniles flit between lagoons and feed on algae. The archipelago is a globally important nesting site for these animals, and in an ongoing effort to better understand them, scientists are always on the lookout for personnel to help with research. Nestor Guzman is the island's natural resource manager and has been working on Diego Garcia for over 20 years.
Good morning, everyone. The reason why you're here today is just help me do the survey. This is what we're doing. Is a long-term monitoring of sea turtles. These are considered as endangered species. So today we're doing this 1.3 miles of the shoreline, walking and looking for some nests.
Every other Friday morning, Nestor and his team of volunteers walk a stretch of the beach to record turtle tracks on the island's shores. The tracks have been left by turtles that lay their eggs on the beach.
So we found one! Yay, yay! So this one is about 2 days old. What I do is measure the diameter from here to here. Oh man, this is huge turtle!
The pattern of this track tells Nestor that this was a green turtle.
This one is where the turtle came up. Because you see, for green turtles, it's simultaneous both.
The turtles climb to the back of the beach and lay their eggs under the bushes. Green turtles are endangered worldwide, so Nestor and his team are keen to help them in any way they can.
It is really very important to pick up trash, just to make sure that the turtles are not covering their eggs with trash. When it's time to hatch, the hatchlings are suffocated, they cannot find their way out. The survivability rate is 85% here. To cover this with trash, it might be less than 50%. Most of this will die.
Nearly all of this trash has floated in from other countries. It's travelled thousands of miles across the open ocean and washed up onto the territory's beaches.
So on our way back, because we're done with the turtle stuff, we'll do a small beach cleanup.
If you would like to take part in these activities across DG, contact the Environment Officer or the Morale, Welfare and Recreation Office. Cleaning up the beaches here on Diego Garcia can have a positive influence on marine life across the Indian Ocean. In 2012, a team of researchers from Swansea and Deakin universities revealed that green turtles from the territory travel huge distances. Using GPS loggers, the researchers tracked 6 turtles over 2 months, and one travelled almost 2,500 miles all the way to Somalia. Before the 1700s, the British Indian Ocean Territory was completely uninhabited. Today, some of the smaller islands are still untouched. But the earliest human settlers left their mark on the larger islands and brought with them a host of hitchhikers. As night falls, the most devastating non-native animal becomes much more active. Rats. Outcompeting many of the native animals, they've caused huge amounts of damage to the island's wildlife. This coconut crab is hollowing out a fallen coconut. And for the rat, the smell is irresistible. Clad in thick armour and armed with giant claws, the coconut crab guards its meal. But the rat has a sly trick. It nibbles at the soft tissue between the crab's armoured plates. It has to be careful. The crab's claws could easily slice it in two. Persisting with little nicks, the rat shifts the coconut crab. And the island's native giant has no choice but to retreat and give up its meal. Rats have also had a terrible impact on the island's bird life. Feeding on eggs and small chicks, ground-nesting seabirds were the first victims. The rats also made it into the trees and almost pushed the colonies to extinction. Today, environmental teams on Diego Garcia are trying to keep the rat population in check. It's a constant battle, but on one island, there are signs of hope. In 2014, scientists working on Île Vache Marine completely removed all of the non-native rats. This little island is now taking its first steps towards recovery. Nesting birds have returned and the colonies are beginning to grow. Yet invasive species are not just a thing of the past. Non-native seeds or pests can unintentionally be brought into Diego Garcia through the passenger terminal.
Hello, is this your bag?
Hi, yes it is.
And did you pack it yourself?
I did, yes.
The British Indian Ocean Territory is a unique place. If you see anything on the islands that you think might not belong in the Indian Ocean, please inform the Environment Officer or the Natural Resources team in the Public Works Department.
Thank you.
When the first human settlers arrived, the islands were covered in giant hardwoods. Some of these trees were centuries old and provided a refuge for nesting birds. The early settlers cut back these native trees to make way for coconut plantations. Despite their reputation as the quintessential desert island plant, some islands still have far more coconut trees than they should.
Coconut trees are really not good for biodiversity in Biot. The birds find it really hard to land and nest in the trees, so you get really quiet forests underneath the coconut palms, whereas in the native forests they're much noisier and there's lots of bird activity.
At the southern end of Diego Garcia, there's a new project to rehabilitate the forests and return them to their former glory. Today, teams of volunteers are helping the plantation workers remove the last remaining coconuts from one of the plots. Once the canopy has been opened and light pours down to the forest floor, the team begin replanting.
The trees that we're planting today are all native trees. We've got Takamaka, we've got some Pisonia, we've got the Koo tree, we've got some Henandia, a whole bunch of different saplings.
It's a mammoth project and the team are always looking for support.
So if anyone's interested in helping on the Southern Restoration site and wants to get involved in any of the volunteer work, the best thing to do is just to drop by the Biot HQ in the office in downtown and ask to speak to the Environment Officer.
The Southern Restoration Project is also home to a nature trail. These paths meander through the forest and offer a glimpse into the past, when the ancient hardwood forests filled the archipelago. Despite its isolation, the islands are not immune from global threats. Around the world, climates are changing in response to increased concentrations of greenhouse gases, largely from the burning of coal, oil and gas. These changes are causing the planet's oceans to warm, which has a devastating effect on the island's keystone creature, the coral polyp. The warm water can kill the polyps and the corals bleach white before being smothered by algae. In 2016, the territory suffered one of the worst coral bleaching events in recent history. Over 80% of all the corals bleached and then died, and the reefs are struggling to recover. Yet hidden away in the cooler parts of the island's lagoons, tiny fragments of this precious reef survived. The next generation of reef fish are hanging on. These safe havens offer the potential for regrowth. And while the reefs are in this vulnerable state, they need us now more than ever. Overfishing aggravates the problems caused by climate change. And throughout the territory, evidence of illegal fishing activity can be found tangled in the reef. But in 2010, a landmark decision was made to declare most of these precious waters a no-take marine protected area, where all commercial fishing is banned and recreational fishing is regulated and only allowed in certain areas. The territory's waters are monitored by the Biot Patrol Vessel, a state-of-the-art ship that scours the oceans for illegal fishing.
We go out on a fishery patrol, we're looking for fishing vessels which may or may not be illegal. If we see one, the senior fishery officer would probably board it. If they have the correct paperwork, making a passage, there's not a problem. But obviously if they have fish on board and they have fishing gear in the water, then it's illegal. It could lead to arrest and prosecution.
Offering your support to protect marine life in these unique islands can really help. Visitors across the islands and personnel on Diego Garcia are allowed to fish for personal consumption, but catch is regulated. Fishermen can take no more than they themselves would expect to consume in 3 days. They may not put out more than 2 fishing lines at any time, and may not use spears or traps. Fishermen are also requested to report their catches so that researchers can monitor our impact on these precious coral reefs. The Territories Marine Protected Area is a milestone for marine conservation. Its reefs are in a fragile state, but with help from the people that live on Diego Garcia and the continued efforts of the island's patrol teams, we can help to increase the chance of recovery. Visitors to the Territory are privileged to see a natural environment unlike anywhere else on Earth. And the first step to caring for this environment is to get out and explore it. To learn more about the reefs, visitors can make use of the incredible snorkeling trail on Diego Garcia.
Today we're just going to go out and do some really basic snorkel survey just to get a really simple understanding of reef health. It's really important to understand the reefs, both from a scientific perspective, but also because the more we understand, the better equipped we are to look after them in the future.
To find out more about exploring the reefs, contact the HQ Environment Officer. By becoming the eyes and ears of the islands, we can discover more about this natural wonder and the challenge it faces. We can all play our part in helping to protect the unique wildlife here in the British Indian Ocean Territory.